I've lived on this land for 20 years. A quiet, peaceful life at the end of a private road. But when my new neighbor Kevin moved in, the peace turned into a war zone. He didn't just dislike me, he wanted to own me. Last Monday, I came home to find a 10-foot steel gate blocking my only way to my house. "This is my land now," Kevin sneered, standing behind the bars like a king. "If you want to get to your front door, you'll have to pay me $1,000 a month for the privilege." He thought he had me trapped. He thought he was the master of the neighborhood. He didn't realize that while he was busy building a gate, I was busy buying his debt. He thought he owned the road. But tomorrow he's going to find out that I own his house. Welcome to Revenge Insight. This is the story of the mortgage trap. Arthur had lived at the end of Miller's Lane for 2 decades. It was a beautiful piece of land, surrounded by ancient oaks and the kind of silence you can only find deep in the countryside. The only way in or out was a narrow, gravel road that cut through the edge of the adjacent property. For 20 years, Arthur had a handshake agreement with the old owner, Mrs. Gable. They were more than neighbors, they were family. But when Mrs. Gable passed away, the land was sold to a man named Kevin. And Kevin didn't believe in handshakes. Kevin arrived in a loud, bright orange Humvee, bringing with him a personality that was even louder. He was a middle-aged man with a deep-seated need for control and a visible disdain for anyone he deemed beneath him. From day one, Kevin made it clear that Miller's Lane was his kingdom. "I don't like people crossing my property line, Arthur," he said during their first meeting. "Consider this a warning. Things are going to change around here." Arthur tried to be the better man. He brought over a welcome basket. He offered to help Kevin fix the old fence. But Kevin wasn't looking for friends. He was looking for a victim. It started small, Kevin parking his car in the middle of the narrow road so Arthur couldn't get past. Then it was the loud parties at 3 a.m. But the real escalation happened on a rainy Monday evening. Arthur was driving home from the grocery store when he hit a dead stop. A massive black steel gate had been installed across the road. It was 10 feet high, topped with barbed wire, and locked with a heavy industrial chain. Kevin was standing on the other side, a smug grin on his face. "Road's closed, Arthur," he announced. "Unless you're willing to pay the toll, $1,000 a month, or you can find a helicopter to get to your house." Arthur sat in his car, the rain drumming on the roof, feeling the first spark of a cold, calculated fury. Arthur didn't lose his temper. He didn't shout. He simply turned his car around and stayed at a local hotel. The next morning, he was in the office of the town's best land attorney. "The handshake agreement is a problem, Arthur," the lawyer sighed. "Since it was never formally recorded in the deed, Kevin has a legal right to restrict access to his land, even if it traps you." Arthur looked at the map of the properties. He saw that Kevin had paid a massive price for the land, far more than it was worth. He asked his lawyer to dig deeper into Kevin's finances. A few days later, the report came back. Kevin was a paper millionaire. He had leveraged everything he owned to buy that property, hoping to flip it for a massive profit. His mortgage was held by a small private lending firm, and he was already 2 months behind on his payments. Kevin thought he had Arthur in a trap, but he had actually left the door wide open. Arthur was a retired hedge fund manager, a fact he had never shared with anyone in town. He knew how debt worked. He contacted the private lending firm that held Kevin's mortgage. They were frustrated with Kevin's excuses and his late payments. Arthur made them an offer they couldn't refuse. He didn't just want to pay the arrears. He wanted to buy the entire debt. Within 48 hours, the paperwork was signed. Arthur was no longer just the man at the end of the road. He was the legal holder of Kevin's mortgage. He was Kevin's bank. He looked at the terms of the loan. They were aggressive. One more late payment, and the bank had the right to initiate immediate foreclosure. Arthur checked the calendar. Kevin's next payment was due in 3 days. And Arthur knew exactly how to make sure that payment never arrived. The next day, Arthur drove back to the gate. Kevin was waiting for him, leaning against a post, holding a clipboard. Decided to pay the toll, Artie? Actually, Kevin, Arthur said, his voice calm and level. I'm here to offer you a one-time settlement. Open the gate, give me a formal easement for the road, and we can forget this ever happened. Kevin laughed, a loud mocking sound. You're in no position to bargain, old man. Pay the money or stay in your hotel. I've got all the time in the world. Arthur nodded slowly. I see. You've made your choice. As he drove away, Arthur made a phone call to a business associate. He arranged for every single one of Kevin's credit lines to be flagged for review. A simple task for a man with Arthur's connections. Kevin's paper kingdom was about to experience a total blackout. 3 days passed. Kevin's mortgage payment was due at 5 p.m. At 4:55 p.m., Kevin tried to make an online transfer from his business account. Transaction declined. He tried his personal credit card. Card revoked. Panicked, Kevin called the lending firm. But the person who answered wasn't a bank clerk. It was Arthur's attorney. Mr. Thorne? We are calling to inform you that your mortgage has been sold to a private entity, the lawyer said. And since the payment has not been received by the deadline, your loan is now in default. We are exercising the acceleration clause. You have 24 hours to pay the entire balance, $3 million, or we will begin immediate eviction proceedings. Kevin felt the blood drain from his face. Who bought the debt? The owner of the Thorne Heritage Trust. I believe he's your neighbor. Kevin spent the next 24 hours frantically calling everyone he knew, but the bridges he had burned in his life were too many. He had no money, no credit, and no friends. The next morning, a fleet of sheriff vehicles pulled into Miller's Lane. Arthur was in the lead car. They stopped at the black steel gate. Arthur stepped out, holding a set of keys. The gate's open, Arthur. Kevin shouted from his porch, his voice cracking with desperation. I'll give you the easement. I'll give it to you for free. Just call off the sheriffs. Arthur walked up to the gate, but he didn't use the keys. He looked at the sheriff. This gate is an illegal obstruction on my property now. Remove it. Within minutes, the sheriffs used a heavy-duty chain to rip the steel gate out of the ground, tossing it aside like scrap metal. The sheriffs moved toward Kevin's house. Kevin was standing on the porch, clutching a shotgun, looking like a cornered animal. Get off my land, he screamed. Kevin, look at the paperwork, Arthur said, standing at the bottom of the porch steps. This isn't your land anymore. The foreclosure was finalized an hour ago. You're a squatter. You have 10 minutes to pack a bag before we escort you off the premises. Kevin looked at the men in uniforms, then back at Arthur. He realized that the man he had called poor and weak was the man who now held his entire life in his hands. He dropped the gun, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He walked into his house and came out 5 minutes later with a single suitcase. He walked down the porch, past the sheriffs, and toward his orange Humvee. Oh, and Kevin? Arthur called out. The Humvee was leased through a company I also just acquired. The repo team is waiting for you at the end of the lane. Arthur watched as Kevin walked down the road he had tried to steal. He watched as the repo team took the keys to the Humvee, leaving Kevin standing on the side of the highway with nothing but a suitcase and a lot of empty arrogance. Arthur turned back to the house. He didn't tear it down. He turned it into a community nature center, a place where people could come to enjoy the peace of the woods without fear of gates or tolls. He formally recorded a permanent public easement for Miller's Lane, ensuring that no one could ever block that road again. The silence of the oaks returned. The birds began to sing again. The war was over. Arthur had won not by being louder but by being smarter. He had turned a wall into a bridge, and a jerk into a memory. Years later, Arthur would sit on his porch looking out at the road. People from town would drive by and wave, and Arthur would always wave back. He had proven that the land doesn't belong to the person with the loudest voice or the biggest gate. It belongs to the person with the most integrity. Kevin was never heard from again. Some said he was working at a car wash in the city. Others said he was still trying to flip houses that didn't belong to him. But for Arthur, he was just a footnote in a very long story. Arthur had his sanctuary. He had his peace. And most importantly, he had the road that led him home. Justice had been served stone by stone, and dollar by dollar. The gate was gone, and the lion was finally back in his garden. Thank you for watching this story of financial strategy and sweet justice on Revenge Insight. Arthur's story is a powerful reminder that the person who blocks your path today might be the one looking for a way out tomorrow. What did you think of Arthur's move to buy the mortgage? Was he too harsh to evict his neighbor? Or did Kevin get exactly what he deserved? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe that intelligence and integrity are the ultimate weapons, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more epic stories of justice. Stay wise, stay strong, and always know who owns the road. Until next time.